After another hot fix that fixed the bug with Oxyotl and the Gyro Bombers, we're here today with a nice little palette cleanser featuring none of the DLC stuff. We just got some classic High Elves versus Empire here today from Holy Spanner, although the builds are anything but classic. Quite unusual from the outset. You see that Shem's Burning Gaze there, and that is going to be featured heavily from this Light Wizard. He's also got Net of Amantok, of course, for the utility, but really going to be using that Shem's Burning Gaze quite a bit, and we'll see how that does on value. We've got a Witch Hunter as well for Ironsides, which is a wild pick, especially against High Elves, given their vulnerability to enemy archers. We've got some Spearmen with shields here, Knights of the Black Rose, and a single unit of Demis, the Rural Altar Griffites. Boris up in the sky. As for the opponents here, the High Elves going to be an Archmage of Death, plus a front line of Spearmen, some Lothern Seaguard. We've got two more casters, Metal and Light. Yeah, looks like Plague of Rust, Net of Amantok, and quite a few spells here on the Flying Mage. Spirit Leech, Purple Sun, Fate of Yuna, looks like Fireborn, got Talons of Torquelada, and War Lions. So relatively thin build, I will say. Taking 3 spellcasters is definitely a risk, and having this many spells, like more than like 2 spells, 3 spells max, really. In most situations, like, you don't really want 4 spells, especially spread across 3 different casters. You are paying quite a bit of extra upkeep for that, and with a faction like the High Elves, definitely need to try and cost optimize as much as possible. There's one other critique I have here as well of the High Elf build before we get started. Yeah, you could go a little bit wider here, maybe cut one of these Lothern Seaguard and then cut the shields from all of them. So you take like 3 archers, 2 Lothern Seaguard, just gives you more width, more volume of arrows, throw at your opponent. And I mean, the High Elven archers, they're not going to be nearly as defensive, of course, but really the thing you have to worry about is like Empire Cavalry here, which there's other tools you need to handle that. But from the outset, we see Boris here getting lit up, Plague of Rust on him. We also saw that Fate of Yuna come down, do a ton of damage to the Royal Altar of Griffites. The Nolan Ironsides come forward, though, and focus fire very efficiently on those Spearmen. They're also now going to focus fire on the Dragonborn, as I believe they're about to get netted here, if I'm not mistaken. But nice to see some Ironsides. Well, maybe not netted, or just tied down by the Knights of the Black Rose, while the Ironsides try and fire in from behind. Knights of the Black Rose definitely going to take some significant damage and just lose out on that engagement. But I guess if they can trade out the Fireborn, or quite a bit of them at least, that'll be advantageous. Boris coming to help out in the front line. Ironsides, a little bit of armor and melee defense means they're not going to fall over immediately, at least, to a unit like Elven Spears, right? It's more defensive. So Boris is able to get in here, get a nice side charge, proc a quick terror route, and make sure those Ironsides can continue firing. Meanwhile, the archers starting to focus on the Ironsides here. As mentioned, they're going to be quite vulnerable to that. The armor does help a bit. They're not as vulnerable as handgunners, it must be said, but they are still definitely vulnerable to it. And now the High Elven archers haven't been able to focus super efficiently, but for Altar of Griffites again, just eating another Fate of Yuna here. Definitely understand why you'd want to bring Fate of Yuna, just to make sure the cavalry fight goes decisively in your favor, and it pretty much has for the High Elves. They've been able to defeat most of the Empire Cavalry here. Only these Knights of the Black Rose remain. That being said, Fireborn have been taking significant damage in the process, as has the Archmage of Death here. Charges in for a quick 1-2. Armor of Stars active, but unfortunately that stock and Unspotable not kicking in until she's pretty far away. That being said, you know, the High Elven Rush is starting to land a little bit. Some pressure on those Ironsides. The War Lions coming through, getting some nice anti-infantry damage. And yeah, the archers now starting to tell. You can see 2 of these Ironsides have been finished. 1 more remains, still fighting. Well, this other one also is wavering, but not long for this world. Knights of the Black Rose going to charge into Lothern Seaguard, and this is definitely why you bring a Lothern Seaguard. Don't get me wrong, you do want some in this matchup. I just think you could probably fit in more volume here, and definitely when it comes to range units, more volume is almost always better if you can afford it and protect it. Nice Purple Sun here is going to come down, wreck one of these units of Ironsides, possibly roll over and do some more damage onto another one. Yep. And so the High Elves definitely scrapping back, definitely not going quietly into that good night, but starting to lose out here on some kind of initiative, if you will, with these war lines now being routed off, and with the Empire having the Knights of the Black Rose still operational, the Fireborn have been finished off, and the Archmage of Death herself is taking quite a bit of damage, so she's not going to be able to affect battlefield charging around with her Eagle. But all that being said, Empire now has a pretty good initiative and mobility advantage with Boris, and with these Knights of the Black Rose, they're going to be able to punch out here, get after some of these Sea Guards. Knights of the Black Rose looking absolutely spectacular as ever. Definitely one of the best looking cavalry units in the game. Man, this game just looking amazing as ever as Boris charges down in. Again, going to use those debuffs and whatnot to good effect here. At least I think he has the debuffs. Yeah, both Crush the Weak and White Cloak of Ulrich going to kick in here and debuff the melee attack, melee defense of these High Elven Spearmen. Of course, they still have Martial Prowess active, but you're basically just negating the benefit of Martial Prowess. Of course, Terror kicks in. They will be pursued. Speaking of pursuit, though, Archmage coming in to get some hits on the Light Wizard. Let's check in on his value. You've probably seen those Shem's Burning Gaze flying around, but he's about to cook up another one. Point blank range. Gets a nice hit. All the missiles just blast the face of the Eagle there. As the Archmage now pulls away, going to throw a little Plague of Rust on the Light Wizard, put him at 0 armor. It's definitely a choice. Yeah, I mean, even here, I don't know, I'd have to evaluate Shem's like shooting from a high value, or sorry, a high angle, like from the Eagle, against infantry and cavalry. I haven't really tried too much, but yeah, seems like it's doing okay here so far, counter-sniping the Flying Caster. Knights of the Black Rose, having a hard time against a lot of the anti-large here, but still effectively hammer and anviling with those spearmen, at least momentarily, before they get then counter-sandwiched by the Lothern Sea Guard. But, yeah, Eagle just chasing off along with the Lions, making sure those Ironsides can't come back. Yeah, we'll check their value after the fight. I'm curious to see how they ended up actually doing here. But, Spearmen versus Spearmen on the objective. It is Conquest, technically. I actually forgot until right now. It's the thing about Conquest, is it doesn't really matter until it does. And then you're actually happy that it's there because you are playing ladder, probably. I don't know. But, yeah, Boris hunting the Archmage here. There's a little anti-infantry blast. Didn't get the best contact. I don't know. Maybe he was trying to shoot the unit that was engaged there, or maybe, I don't know exactly which unit it was targeting. Didn't catch that, but regardless, as soon as Boris lands, it's going to be a terror route for a lot of these tattered High Elf units. 2v1 versus these two Footcasters. He'll be fine. I mean, typically 2v1's not an ideal situation, but they are very flimsy Footcasters. Some of the weakest stats of any single entity in the game, and just getting absolutely clubbed by Boris in this engagement, just destroyed. And the Archmage also swinging around. Gonna eat another Shems right to the face. All but one missile makes contact there. Another good chunk of damage, and that's gonna set the balance of power pretty decisively in the Empire's favor. Has been a pretty good back and forth scrap up until this moment. That Witch Hunter also has been doing stuff. He's 500 value. I guess technically is doing things. But Boris getting Spirit Leeched here. Gonna come down. He can eat that Spirit Leech all day with the self-healing and just pummel these casters. Allow the Spearmen to continue fighting very cost-effectively against the Lothern Sea Guard. This is a super great trade for the Spearmen, even if it will take them 25 years to actually win that fight. Just from a cost efficiency perspective, definitely very nice for the Empire. And the Lions in pursuit. I'm actually surprised this one Lion managed to stay alive. I'm not sure where they've been. I guess just chasing routing units this whole time. The other Lion, too, is actually still hanging around. In terms of leadership, giving the High Elves a little bit of a push here in the late game. We see Plague of Rust on Boris. The bows, the net, not able to really make great contact. He does kind of hard land there, even with the net active. That is one buggy thing about hard snares. Can't necessarily prevent units from landing and taking off, and also doesn't prevent them from moving if they're in a charge animation already, which can result in some pretty buggy behaviors. But Boris getting close to his healing cap now. With that Plague of Rust still active, taking a couple shots from the Talons of Torquilada. Yeah, another point-blank blast to the Archmage of Death. I don't think that one made the best contact, but still, Archmage has to do a quick hit and run and then get out of dodge. Meanwhile, the Witch Hunter kiting a witch here, or rather an Elven Mage. And yeah, I'm not sure if he can get a few more shots off. He might. Oh, looks like that's enough. He does manage to break her leadership. Reunite here with Boris. The Witch Hunter down to about 400 HP, but he's pretty much paid for himself. As Boris gets another attack run in. That accusation debuff, haven't really been tracking too much, to be honest, but I'm assuming he's been using it to pretty good effect on these High Elven characters. The benefit of the doubt on that one, but all of a sudden, the High Elves are looking like they're not going quietly. I mean, Elven leadership is definitely very real. And there's a lot of spears and casters here. That being said, Boris is who he is, and I don't think he really cares too much about any of this. The Warlines, maybe, if they're able to stay close and keep Boris on the ground while he tries to fight the spears, that could potentially be a way of winning, but Boris also could just get up in the air, go charge the Warlines directly, and at that point, it's just a matter of cycle charging all the rest of these spears, or they might just hit army losses first. It's hard to say. A lot of these spears starting to shatter. Little Spirit Leech there on the Light Wizard. Definitely misplaced damage. Should be going into Boris 100% at this point. Or finish off the Witch Hunter. He's got a little bit more ammunition left, and he's plinking away at the Archmage here. He's going to land and try and finish him off the old-fashioned way. You have to say that purple cloak of the Archmage of Death looks very good. Definitely a reason to bring it just in and of itself. But it's not enough to help her survive as Boris gets the rear charge there. And that should be pretty much army losses. We'll fast forward through this last Gems Burning Gaze. Boris kind of dilly-dallying a bit and then charges in, and that's all she wrote. Very nice game. Big thanks to Holy Spanner for sending that one in. And fun to see sort of some unusual builds. I mean, the High Elf stuff's relatively standard. Some unusual, I guess, in the triple caster. Although that Deathcaster, again, you don't need these other two. They don't really provide enough value. Maybe you want the Plague of Rust, and I understand, like, wanting the nets tactically. I just don't think there was enough value gained here. I think the paid-up unit in and of itself is enough to just nuke Royal Altar of Gryphites, and yeah, I mean, other high armor targets against the Empire. Maybe you're worried about a steam tank here, I guess, perhaps. But, I mean, you've got, like, the Fireborn and these other mobile AP units in the Lions that can potentially help deal with that. So, definitely would cut probably both of these casters, to be honest, and just take Lore of Death and then distribute that other value out. Maybe take a couple of light cavalry. Again, change up the archer composition a little bit, but overall, ended up being pretty close at the end of the day. Lothram Seaguard, archers, able to get some pretty good value. Again, maybe you want the Plague of Rust. That's one that I would maybe consider including, just because it is relatively cheap and is a huge force multiplier for all of these archers, for sure, if you can get good contact with it. But, yeah, the Fireborn, definitely elite cavalry on both sides, to be honest. Just got absolutely nuked. And, yeah, the Old Iron Sides ended up doing respectable value. Not anything too crazy. But I'm honestly pretty impressed by the Light Wizard at the end of the day. Able to get some really good value shooting single entities with that Gems Burning Gaze. Seems like a nice include if you have Lore of Light and that's your Lore of Magic you're choosing. You know, why not take Shems? It's relatively cheap to include. Gives you a nice damage option in case Net's not always the best tactical thing to do, even though it is very strong generally. You use it well. And 100 kills at the end of the day for the Witch Hunter. 884 value on him, rather. Pretty good stuff. Boris, of course, powerhouse, as he has always been. So, fun stuff for sure. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.